I would like to talk about the idea of a virtual existence. Are we a program? Are we living in a computer? Are we a computer? And what does it really mean? How does it matter? Here is my thinking. If we are a computer, then we can look at ourselves from a different perspective, because this means that all our feelings and desires, they are calculations of a computing way. They're like algorithmic. So they're not like magical. They're not this, being created by God who magically thinks. It's more like it's logical. It makes logical sense. It uses patterns to think, to calculate decisions. So if you start to see yourself from that perspective, it changes everything, the way you see yourself, the way you understand yourself. It explains why every person has a different idea about things, right and wrong, morality. And it's because in their own head there's this big calculator, and it can only calculate information based on what's in this person's head. So if this person heard some things from people, books, reading, watching, his ideas, his desires, his conclusions will be based only on that information. And that's why sometimes you meet a person and he reacts to your words in such a weird way, and you think, why? I didn't say anything wrong. What's wrong with this person's reaction? And it's because his little computer calculated based on his strengths and weaknesses, his bugs, his emotional problems, emotional damage, his perspective on life, his understanding of things. Some people's brains or computers are very slow. You can talk to them and you can see them like they're in thinking mode. They're looking at you like they can't hear you. And it's because the processor is very slow. And if you talk fast, they won't understand you. They won't be able to process the information. And other people's processor is very fast. So they like think on their feet. You speak fast and they catch on really quickly. And their brain makes all these links, and you say something and they already know what you mean. And it's only because of the two factors: what information and experiences is in their brain database, and how fast or slow their processor is working. So if we are a computer, then when they say this person was programmed to think this way, it's actually really true. And if you were programmed to think a certain way, that means you can be reprogrammed to think a different way. And when people convert to different belief systems, that's what happens. They get reprogrammed. Their perspective on life changes, their decisions change, their goals change. When we think of an existence as a computer, it also explains the fact that some people cannot feel pain. And you ask yourself, well, why does anyone feel pain? Well, it's because you were programmed to feel it. And this means you can be programmed not to feel it. Some people can be hot in a certain situation And some people can even maybe program themselves to think that it's not hot. And when people are under hypnosis or in a suggestive state, it's like, like if you use a computer and you go into edit mode in your computer program and you can edit the code, it's like that. You can program them. Like if one person is smoking and cannot quit, and then somebody puts him under hypnosis and basically writes a new program and says, you do not like smoking. The person wakes up and doesn't smoke anymore. Or it could explain diseases like, well, not diseases, but conditions like, how do you say that? Whenever a person's leg gets cut off, but he still feels pain as though the leg is there. Phantom leg syndrome. Phantom, it's like a ghost, kind of like it's not there anymore, and yet his body is acting and reacting as though it's there. It just shows you that the physical presence is not necessary, because the physical does not really exist in the first place. In a sense, obviously it exists because we see it, but it's a program. It creates a perception of physical, and just like you can sense something physical like it's there, you can also be programmed not to sense it. Imagine a person who is blind. That's step number 1. He is not programmed to see things. How does he know that anything exists? By being programmed to hear things. Imagine he can't hear. So then how does he know? Because he's programmed to feel things with his body, to feel the environment reacting with his body. But imagine that he couldn't feel either. Then he would think that was nothing there, that he was all alone in some kind of a darkness. And so people can be programmed. So when you see a person talking about right and wrong, sometimes it's very upsetting because somebody programmed them to think the wrong way from our perspective. And they are so convinced that this is the right way. And it's so upsetting to those of us who disagree. And it's because it's just all a matter of logical calculating. So if somebody inputs certain information into your brain, like prejudices against certain races, then your brain calculates logically based on that information, and to that person, his decisions are rational and logical. Sometimes decisions can seem irrational to other people, but they are actually rational. The reason they seem irrational is because the other people have a different goal in mind. For example, here is a disaster, like a tornado or a hurricane or an earthquake or a tsunami, and a mother knows that her child may possibly be in the middle of it, and so instead of running away from the disaster, she will run into the middle of it. And a person whose goal is to survive would say that is illogical behavior, irrational, because you don't run into the middle of the problems. Why? Because you're supposed to survive, and that's not what you do to survive. But a mother's brain doesn't have the same goals. For her, survival is not a priority. For her, a priority is to take every step possible to save her child. So, obviously, logically, the first step to do that is to run into the midst of the trouble towards her child so she could help somehow. So this irrational behavior is totally rational. Or take a person who reacts like, say you come and you tap her on the shoulder, or you try to hug her on the shoulder, and she shudders and she gets scared. Well, it seems like an irrational behavior. But if she was like raped or abused or scared somehow, and these movements were associated with that event, it's perfectly logical for her to now associating fear with those movements. And even our likes or dislikes, they are kind of grown, they are developed. People in certain cultures prefer certain things, prefer certain foods, start to like certain foods and dislike other foods, or colors, or schemes, or fashion. It's all just programming. So if everything is just programming, then I think it's logical to see or jump to the idea that everything is a computer and therefore can function as a computer functions. Well, not the computer that we have, but the idea of a computing machine of some sort. So we are a biological computer, and there could be other forms, types of computers or computing machines. And when we are born, we seem to know that we need to eat or sleep or go to the bathroom. It's like that program is a part of us. Something tells it to do stuff, so it knows. So you could ask yourselves, how do the cells know what to do? Who or what in-programmed them with that information? And we don't have answers to those questions yet. And therefore, we can speculate and imagine and assume and try to guess. And the best guess is when you can make your assumption kind of fit the reality, kind of observe how your assumption makes reality seem logical. So, for example, if the whole existence is a computer and it knows what to do, I don't know how it knows, but we know that it knows, because the earth knows how to grow trees and animals. It just knows. So something makes it know. So imagine that everything knows what to do. The universe knows how to grow planets and what to do. So imagine that there was always this knowing, and all the things or materials, building blocks of life, they come with this knowing. They're programmed to know how to move, to know how to reproduce. So if you imagine that, then you can also imagine that the universe comes with a program of saving data, restoring data, deleting data, purging data, cleaning data, like the computers we have. We can copy files, move files. We can do lots of different things. And it looks like the existence is like a computer. And therefore, I think it's logical to assume that this computer knows how to do all this, and it does it automatically just because. Just like two people automatically are attracted to each other, come together, have sex, have a baby, and keep producing life, or go to the bathroom automatically, just like that, the universe may be programmed to automatically know what to do when it comes to other things. So like the idea of a resurrection. If there is no God, sitting separately from the universe, directing anything, one would say, how would the universe know to resurrect anyone? Well, I say, the same way people know how to have sex or how to reproduce. The same way the cells in the body know how to multiply. I say the universe, or more than one, the existence, whatever exists is the whole existence, comes pre-programmed with like a machine, a system of giving birth to life, taking care of life, promoting life, giving eternal life to life, if there is such a thing, which there may not be, but it may be seen as such from our perspective, because, if you live 1,000,000 years, you could consider that an eternity from our perspective, considering we only live for a second, which is like 70 years, like a second maybe comparing to 1,000,000. So it's not a big stretch, is it, to imagine that when you die, the universe is pre-programmed automatically to know what to do with your body, your soul, your consciousness, because your consciousness is more like a pattern, a structure, a pattern of links created a certain way, like when you create a computer program, and then that program, when it's being executed, it runs and it creates data. Kind of in the same way, the human soul is like a program which, when it runs, it creates life experiences. But the program itself is like a set of algorithms. It's a pattern. It's the way the person reacts to the environment. And so life shapes a person because without experiences, a person will react one way to the environment, but then experiences change his reactions. So it's like he's not even the same person anymore. So it's kind of hard to tell who the person is, except that you know that there was a beginning, there was this program that started to react to the environment this particular way, and then it kept doing that, and experiences kept changing the reactions, and this is what a person is. So it's a program that reacts a certain way and that gets modified, and its reactions get modified. So a person is like a fluid thing. It's not the same. He's not the same. He's constantly changing. So it's hard to define what a person is, really. There is no one person, since he's always changing, some more than others. So there is this belief or idea that exists which says that the universe, like a computer, or more than universe, has like this storage space. Some people call it Akashic records. You could call it whatever you want, but it keeps a record of data, of all the experiences, and each soul is like a little pattern, little program being executed or running and creating all this data. And it's being recorded, like it's automatically being recorded in our computers. And imagine that someday we find a way to be able to read that data, access it, restore it. Because we are a part of this computer, we could probably find a way to communicate with the computer. It's about evolving and understanding, because we are so primitive right now. We don't even know how we work too much. Many times we do stuff we don't even know why or how or how to make it different. But when we learn all that and evolve, we'll maybe find ways to communicate. Some say that you can communicate with your body and make yourself healthier because your cells can hear you, because it's all a program. It's like little code, running within a program. It's like if you have a computer program and there is this other program interacting with it, asking it questions, responding to it. It's kind of like that. If we are both programs, we can learn to interact with each other eventually. And maybe we'll find a way to communicate with animals on some other level other than verbal, because there are already experiences of people who can communicate with each other beyond just the words level, some other level. They can understand each other and hear each other and feel each other on some other level. And so this is just the beginning, and it's logical to assume for me that it will expand, the knowledge will expand, and people will discover a way how to communicate with its environment, how to affect it. And as a bonus, they'll realize that they shouldn't spit into the water they're going to drink, so to speak. They shouldn't kill the environment which supports them. So if everything is a computer, a program, and a program has the ability to save data, restore data, then it's, for me, seems logical to assume that there's an in-programmed system for resurrection, that people could automatically get resurrected and placed into a different environment. We hear stories, different experiences, all kinds. And we can't explain any of this yet. But there's a whole other world out there. It's like we live in one room and we are yet to explore the other 100 rooms in the house. So who knows what wonders the universe is programmed with, the abilities it has, the opportunities it has for the souls to continue. But for me, it's very logical and rational to assume that since the universe has a program for creating life and transferring life from one state to another, that there is a way to restore programs, souls, take the pattern of a soul and place it into a different environment, connected to a different set of stuff, and make it function once again. So like we are all saved, and we can read our experiences later because we'll learn to access them and reread them and feel them. This is exciting.